Namaste. Shakti here at Sebastian Yoga Online, and doing a video today on tension for the neck and shoulders. So we're doing some myofascial release techniques using tennis balls for the neck and shoulders. Often in our lives these days we're holding things out in front of us, steering wheels, phones, typing, that lends itself to a rounded forward in the shoulders posture. So that can condense the muscles of the chest, it can lengthen the muscles of the upper back and cause this general pattern of tension, can lead to headaches, just general pain around the areas of neck and shoulders. So we'll be exploring some ways to alleviate that pain and stress in lieu of a full body massage or any massage therapist. For some of us, that's just not a possibility right now. So we can do some of those massage techniques using tennis balls. So grabbing two, if you have them, one is good enough. And we'll take the tennis ball in one hand and choose a side to start. We'll start with the neck. So right where the neck kind of becomes the shoulder, that nice slope that reaches here, we'll find like right at the middle part of that as the slope begins to turn into the shoulder. And we'll kind of massage back and forth with this tennis ball. So finding a pressure, you might feel there's sort of a ropey tendon underneath. Finding a pressure that feels good and not that feels painful. If you're grimacing or holding your breath, those are good signs that you could ease up a little bit. So going back and forth and then grabbing the tennis ball with the opposite hand, we're going to go up and down. So sliding up the neck and then down the shoulder. You'll see that I'm kind of tracing this line, side of the neck, top of the shoulder, right to that bone but not on top of it. We'll do here what's called pin and stretch. So pressing that tennis ball down on the top of the shoulder. I've really got a nice grip on the tennis ball, pressing down, and then reach your opposite ear to your opposite shoulder. And you can shift and do that a few times. You might even turn your chin away, stretching that down. Kind of experimenting with different angles of the head. And then grab the tennis ball again with the same hand as the shoulder, and we'll do circles up the side of the neck. So here you want to be nice and gentle, so start with less pressure than you think you might need. We're dealing with the sides of vertebrae in the cervical spine. So we want to be tender. These are the sites of a lot of muscle connections, a lot of insertion points or origin points of muscles. But it's also bone, so we want to be careful how much pressure we're using. It should feel good. Any pain, tingling down the arm, pause, take a couple breaths, let that go away. And if you come back to this after those sensations, less pressure. We don't want any numbness or tingling because that's nerve stuff. You might do like a long sweeping motion up the side of the neck. Keep it up the side, and we won't travel up toward the throat. A lot of vascular tissue there that doesn't like a lot of downward pressure. And then right at the base of the head, where the skull sort of turns into fleshy neck, it's called the occiput, and we'll find that with the tennis ball and just trace back and forth. Again, we can find a pin and stretch action, so pressing right underneath the skull at that occiput, and then reaching the chin up, floating the chin down, turning left to right. Left to right might feel really good here, just holding the tennis ball steady and letting the head turn around the tennis ball. And Releasing, roll that shoulder up, back, and down a few times. Working on the same side, but bringing the tennis ball into the other hand. We'll trace some circles around the very front of your shoulder. So this is where bicep attachment is, also a pectoral muscle. So from this point, we'll come underneath the collarbone in a long line. And again, maybe about the middle of the chest on that side, we can pin right underneath the collarbone, press down with your tennis ball and open your arm wide. Maybe reach the fingers back and then bring it forward. You might lift the arm up, really holding the tennis ball in place. Try not to let it kind of float up with the arm. Keep it right where it is and let the arm move where the tennis ball's pressure is. Again, we're looking for a pressure that feels good, not that we're bruising ourselves or hurting in any way. Maybe a 7 out of 10 sensation level. Good. You could even move the tennis ball as you move your arm. I like to go diagonally from the front of my shoulder down toward my belly button, but just a few inches of that diagonal line. And this way it becomes a little brain game, kind of like patting your head, rubbing your belly. And then relax that arm, just trace a big circle in front of the chest. And start to breathe in a way that you're expanding this area. You're expanding the side of your chest. See if you can breathe into your tennis ball. Okay, right down the sternum, really light pressure. Just up and down, maybe little teeny light circles, side to side, lines, up and down motions. Very, very light, very gentle. Right on top of bone, but there is some connective tissue there, of course, and can enjoy a little bit of massage, a little movement, some circulation. So we'll do that on the opposite side. Resting for a moment just to notice from left to right. You've worked on one side. How does it feel? Comparison to the other side. I tend to feel like the side that I worked is somehow lighter. Okay, tennis ball to that slope of the neck where neck becomes shoulder. For me, it's right about where this strap is on my shirt. So pressing down there, front to back. Just feeling the potential ropiness of that trapezius muscle. Good lengthwise, top to bottom. Up the side of the neck, top of your shoulder. You might really be hearing my tennis ball under my hand through the microphone. And then bring the same hand as the shoulder to the tennis ball. Trace circles up the side of the neck. Oh, we forgot to do the pin and stretch. So bring that opposite hand to the tennis ball, press the very top of the shoulder right at that slope, right about where the strap of my shirt is here. Press down toward the ground and stretch opposite ear to shoulder. Notice if your breath could be deeper into your belly. Some of our neck and shoulder tension comes from just the way that we tend to breathe. So coming into a breath that's more toward the bottom of your lungs instead of the top of the lungs. Experimenting with turning your chin. And releasing that tennis ball in the same hand as the shoulder. Find the side of your neck and make circles. Good. You can follow along with me, or if something feels good, you can pause. Continue to explore a certain point, trigger point, pressure point. Or we'll move on to that occiput. So right about where the hairline ends for most of us, the very base of the skull, trace a line back and forth, maybe little circles underneath. All the way toward the spine, but right just off of it. So just to the side. Side of the spine, not on top. And again, that pin and stretch, pressing into that occiput area and looking up, looking down. That might be illuminating, or you might pause at center and turn side to side. Keeping the tennis ball kind of still and letting the head slide back and forth on it. Releasing that for the chest work, front of the shoulder. Right underneath the collarbone. My mic is right in the way, but you remember from the other side, nice long line from the sternum to the front of that shoulder underneath the collarbone. We're just tracing, finding a good pressure. And again, our pin and stretch. So reaching your arm back in space. You might shift that tennis ball around so you feel like, oh, that's a good spot, and then move the arm as you pin the tennis ball. Reaching up and down. Maybe sliding the tennis ball kind of lengthwise or in a big diagonal from the front of the shoulder down toward the belly button. Big circles in that triangle from front of shoulder to the sternum, under collarbone. Again, pause if you'd like some more time anywhere. Sternum up and down, side to side. And if you have the 2 tennis balls, we can move on to some upper back work. If not, that can be really great for relieving the upper back, is working the chest. As a massage therapist, I always work the chest for people, especially if they're coming in for upper back and neck tension and pain. Because that upper chest is usually kind of locked forward, again, from our posture, from stress and patterns of breathing. So opening that up can actually help to relieve the tension that you're feeling in the upper back. So that could be plenty. You could pause the video here, go about your day, or we'll spend a little more time with the 2 tennis balls in the upper back between the spine and the shoulder blades. So if you'll notice, between my shoulder blades, I can kind of feel from left to right, like where the shoulder blades end, and then where the spine is in the center. And I'm looking for that fleshy part between the shoulder blade and the spine on this side, shoulder blade and the spine on this side. And about as high as I can come to, almost like when you're giving yourself a little squeezy massage, where your fingers can land. That's where we're going to start with our tennis balls, right about there. So we'll come to lie down, tennis balls with us, feet can be to the earth or wherever's comfortable, and sort of tuck them underneath so that we're in between bones, in between shoulder blade and spine. If you have a little blanket, that can be nice underneath of the head. And shifting so that those tennis balls are comfortable enough between the bones, not right on the bones. Depending on our anatomy, those bones might be a little closer toward the spine, and a tennis ball may just be a little bit too wide. So something to help is to spread those shoulder blades apart by reaching the arms up out in space. And this can feel good even if you're not on bones. So experiment with where your arms are, maybe reach them up away from you. You could even give yourself a hug, kind of rocking side to side. To take sensation level down a notch, you could add a thin blanket or towel on top of your tennis balls and then lay on it. If this is feeling like too much, we're grimacing or have shallow breath or short breath. So little movements we can make here, kind of pressing the tailbone down into the earth and lifting the chest. Again, experimenting where arms are. They could even come wide and then back to center. You could make circles with elbows, shrugging shoulders, dropping shoulders. Or you could hang out in total relaxed stillness, just feeling the weight sink over your props. Feel free to stay here if this feels like the illuminating kind of spots that you really need worked on. If you'd like to travel down the rhomboids, further down the upper back, then one way to shift is to kind of pick up the hips and move the whole unit of the torso back toward your head, moving the head as well. You might notice if one tennis ball or the other kind of needs to shift, you can manually adjust, making sure that they're not on top of any bones. And then play with movement of the arms. I like to reach the arms overhead, lifting the chest, bring the arms up toward the ceiling and then down toward the hips, out to the sides. Give myself a hug. Moving slowly enough to allow time for tennis balls to do their work. There are lots of fancy myofascial release tools out there. Lots of different kinds of shaped and textured tools. The melt system would be an example of that. Yamana body rolling with their much larger tools and different textures. But for people who haven't yet invested in that, tennis balls is a great option. A lacrosse ball, if you're familiar with that, if you're someone who needs more pressure, like really deep tissue maximum massage in order to feel that sense of relief, lacrosse balls are much larger and denser. So they're going to give you a lot more pressure and feedback in this kind of work. Feel free to stay. I don't recommend staying in one spot for longer than 2 minutes. Or slide those tennis balls down as you slide your body back. You might come to a point where it feels like, this is not comfortable. If that's true, then try and shift your weight a little bit off. You could lift the chest a bit, bringing the feet a little bit closer in, more pressure into the lower body. And breathe into those tennis balls. Breathe into the part of your body that feels the pressure. Or again, if you want more pressure, then you could even lift your hips. dumping a little more weight into the upper back. You could even rock your hips or knees side to side. This is very individual and unique work, so I'm giving you cues, but really it's up to you to explore and figure out what you really need in your body, what position the tennis balls or whatever tool you're using needs to be in. And at this point you might make one big line up and down either sides of the spine by just shifting the weight forward and back. You might think or imagine you're like a bear scratching its back on a tree, but in slow motion. Wouldn't say to go too fast. Arms can take any shape again. Breathing into the sensation that you feel. And you could absolutely continue to explore spots down and down and down the spine all the way to the sacrum or lower back, right about the opposite side of where just below the belly button would be. You could go all the way down the back, either side. But today we'll end here with just that upper back, chest, neck, shoulders relief. So to come out, you could just roll to one side. Use your top hand to help press you up. Taking inventory, noticing the effects of our practice. Some of that work we could absolutely do every day for a little while if we're really experiencing an acute sense of tension. I would say to err on the side of gentle. If this is work that is new to you, that you're not necessarily used to, then take it easy, maybe go every other day, make sure that we're not having a lot of soreness in between sessions. Let that soreness totally dissipate before you come back to another session. And you can watch this video as many times as you need to guide you through those little bits. Leave any questions in the comments below and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Lots of water in between can help to drive away some of that tension if it's coming up, or some of that tension if it's coming up. Not sure where I was going with that there. Videos. I thank you so much for watching, and if you like this, please click subscribe if we're on YouTube, and if you're already a member of Sebastian Yoga Online, I thank you for your patronage. You can visit our Patreon page to become a member and get more videos and content like this. Namaste.